Hi, this is Kristen here, and welcome to another process video. And today I'm working on a layout for the Iron Crafter Challenge. This is hosted by Tara from the Paper Snob, and all the information is down below if you would like to participate or watch the other videos in the playlist for others who are playing along. And so with the Iron Crafter Challenge, you're supposed to follow a recipe to make your layout, so to use on your layout. And so this month's challenge was to use wood veneer, inks and stencils, and decorative scissors. And so obviously I'm working on my stencil part of the layout. So I'm just using Texture Crackle Paste, and that's by Tim Holtz. And the stencil that I'm using is by Simple Stories, and it's just in a wave pattern. I'm working on Vicky Bouton's mixed media cardstock. So I hadn't prepped it, which I probably should have, just because I do end up adding quite a bit of water to it, but it actually held up pretty well and stayed flat pretty well. Now, usually if I do mixed media, I will put, when I'm done, I will put it through a laminator, but with the texture paste, I just didn't know how that would hold up with a laminator, so I opted not to do that. Now, I could have probably put the stencil on a little bit neater, like I actually let it dry and then reposition it. So there are some like splotches there, but I also knew a lot of it was going to be covered up. Unless you're really looking at it, you don't really notice it. So I'm going to start getting my paint down. The first color that you see is Jenny B Blues, and it is a Shimmers paint. The color I'm spraying now is Delusions ink, and it's in the color turquoise. And so I'm just going to spray some water on it. So then that way it looks less like a spray and more watercolor. So essentially what I'm trying to recreate here is obviously like an ocean scene. I'm going to alternate between these two and just kind of spray them on the page and then use more water. Really, there was no rhyme or reason to where I put the wave stencil or even the paint. I just kind of was playing for the most part. Mixed media isn't something I do often, and so part of the process is just me trying to learn things and, you know, get a little bit better at it. So I do end up dabbing up some of the paint and water just because I didn't want too much of the water to, you know, end up disintegrating the paper just because I hadn't prepped it. So I dry it in between. This color is Peacock's Plume, and I'm just kind of randomly going in spots and adding color. I will add spray, just water to this as well. So that way it doesn't look like, you know, blobs of color there. So I'm just trying to add, you know, a little bit more dimension to the waves. There was really no rhyme or reason for where I put things, so. I feel like a lot of time mixed media is just kind of playing around with stuff and having fun. And then I'm just gonna do some paint splatters around. I'm just going to dry it in between again. And this color is called the Holly and the Ivy, and that's a Shimmers paint. So both Peacock's Plume, this color, and the Jenny B Blues were all Shimmers paint. Now the Holly and the Ivy, that came, I think, in like their color kit for Christmas. And then the other two, so Peacock's Plume and Jenny B Blues, I think both of those came in June's kit. Although I'm not 100% sure on that, so. And I'm just going to go around and add some paint splatters. This is again in the Jenny B Blues, and I pull in the Delusions ink as well. Just kind of splatter around the page. And you can see the paper is, has some waves to it, but really for how much water I put on it, it really held up pretty nicely. Although, I mean, the cardstock by Vicki Booten from Mixed Media is, it's pretty thick paper and it's designed that way. But even with that paper, I often will go ahead and prep it. I just was partly being lazy and partly just wanting to try to get this layout started. And so I really was kind of being a little impatient with like prepping it. So this paper was from the Shimmers June kit. And so I decided I found a wave cut file on Cricut that looked very similar to the waves that were in the stencils. So I go ahead and cut out 6 of those pieces just to add a little bit more dimension to the page. I initially only cut out 3 because I wasn't sure how it was going to look, and decided I liked how it looks, so I ended up cutting 3 more. And this paper here was also in the May kit. So the June kit. So the June kit had like a lot of teal and purple. It was very beach themed, so it had like a lot of mermaids and like plant life and things like that. So, which I love purple, so I really liked the colors of this month's kit. So I just decided to gut that, and I'm going to use that as a border. Oftentimes, like when I do mixed media, like with the white cardstock, I always feel like it looks unfinished if you don't add a border. That's just, I know like a lot of people do mixed media and just leave that as is, but I just feel like for me, it's like it looks unfinished to me. So I always, a lot of time, I'm not saying always, but a lot of time I will add a border. And so the pictures I'm documenting are of my kiddos when we were down in Marco Island. So I was trying to recreate kind of the color of Marco Island's water. It's kind of like a greenish blue. I mean, depending on the day and, how sunny and stuff it is. So we were out swimming and we kept finding starfish. We would step on them and you'd feel them. So we had actually pulled one up because we didn't realize what we were stepping on and realize what it was, and so the kids all had to check it out before we put it back in the water. These pieces that you see me using or cutting out, I won't even use on it. So there's some old rub-ons that I decided to rub on cardstock just to see if they would even like still rub on, and they did. So I will use them in a future layout, just not in this one because they just didn't fit. These pieces are Mente chippies, so they're just chipboard, and they put out different, like Mente puts out different themes with these chippies. So this one was a sea life theme. I've got like some flower themes and things like that. So they put out and they actually have quite a bit on them. So I end up popping off a couple like seaweed, kind of like, coral type pieces, some starfish, a couple sea turtles, and then some fish. And if you guys have used Mente chippies, let me know like what you do to paint them, because I've only really painted them with watercolor, and I don't know how, like, if they accept acrylic better than really the watercolor. I feel like they don't do very good with watercolor. Anything that's like, got a lot of water to it. It seems like the pieces kind of want to disintegrate a little bit. So I thought maybe even chalk paint might work on it. So I am going to go ahead and prep this. Now I just dip my finger in there and rub it on there because, I really didn't care to get a paintbrush out. And gesso, like it cleans right off. So I didn't care that I got it on my finger. So I was just rubbing it on the chippies. And like I said, I would definitely, if you're going to paint with watercolor on chippies, I would definitely prep it, because like I said, they do want to kind of peel and disintegrate a little bit with water-based paint. And I feel like the more watery the paint is, the less like the chippy wants to accept it. It just seems like it either wants to kind of absorb into the chippy or, you know, which obviously gesso will help keep it from absorbing into the chippy, which is why I'm prepping it. But I'm almost wondering if like if the chippies would do better with just like acrylic paint. So. But I didn't want to use acrylic paint on this because, you know, I wanted to use the colors that I used for the ocean background. So this is the Jenny B Blues, and I did end up having to paint quite a few layers onto this. I let it dry in between, and then it probably took a good 3 coats to kind of get it to where it was at, so. And then I used the Peacock's Plume, which it actually accepted the Peacock's Plume pretty well, just because that is a thicker paint, so. And then the starfish, I painted it in that gold paint that you can see the lid down there. That is called Stay Golden, and that was part of this month's kit. It's really pretty. It had like a lot of glittery glitter pieces in it. This is called Lilac Blossom, and I think this was in this month's kit because I know there was definitely a purple. This is in the Holly and the Ivy. That's what I'm painting the turtles. And so really the chippies did pretty good accepting the rest of the paint. It was just, a lot of it was that Jenny B Blues, which is pretty, I mean, it's a pretty thin paint. And then what you see me holding up here is the border punch. Now I didn't have decorative scissors that had, I mean, I guess it had like a little bit of a waveform to it, but not quite what I was looking for. So I just used my punch, which Tara said that that was an acceptable alternative if you didn't have decorative scissors, so. I had thought I had started filming again when I had started arranging the clusters at the top of the photo, and had not, so that's why everything's kind of already arranged up there. I haven't glued it down yet, but so here's the decorative border. So I put one on the top and one on the bottom so that I'm staying within the Iron Crafter challenge. Now, I kind of considered the chippies as kind of my wood veneer, although I do add a wood veneer piece as well, just to more closely follow the rules. But I feel like the chippies, you know, they kind of have an appearance of just painted wood veneer. Now, that sun piece, that is wood veneer. That came from one of the Hip Kit Club kits. And I'm wanting to say it was probably like June or July of 2024. I went ahead and painted it in that Stay Golden color. So the same color as the starfish. These 2 pieces that you see me working with here, those all came in the June Shimmers paint kit. So the other pieces over on the right hand side, the seaweed pieces, same thing. And the beach piece, the starfish, and the purple tag, as well as the heart, that all came from the June kit. I had also mounted the kids' photographs on to white cardstock and then kind of distressed the edges. I was thinking about putting something else behind them, but then I kind of just felt like with like the mixed media background, I decided to just kind of keep it simple because I thought maybe this page would end up getting maybe a little busy looking, so. And I'm putting my stamping block, as well as like you'll see me pulling a punch. I don't know if I've already done it, but just for some weight to rest on top of those pieces, just because the paper was a little wavy from the mixed media. I don't think it was so much that the glue was having a hard time adhering down to the paint in the background. It was more the texture paste, because the texture paste did have kind of like a grittier feel to it, so. I was just gonna use plain texture, like a smooth texture paste, but I went to open it up and it's dried out. So I don't know if anybody has suggestions as to, I mean, I didn't buy it that long ago, if you can rehydrate that, or like once it is kind of semi-dried out, it's dried out. I don't work with it enough to know, so I was gonna look it up. I just haven't had a chance to yet. Can you rehydrate your texture paste? I would like to know. Because I mean, it's not inexpensive, so I was kind of bummed out when I went to open it up, but thankfully the crackle texture paste was just fine. So I decided to pop the Beach Please and the Starfish up on foam because I wanted it set out in front of the photograph a little bit. Now the photographs, I did pop those up on foam before I adhered them down, just so that way I would have enough room to tuck the chippies and all that behind it. I'm just checking on everything here to make sure it's kind of dried. I do add some foam behind the Starfish because when I tucked the fish in behind it, it did pop the Starfish up a little bit. So I just want to make sure that, you know, that the Starfish would be safe where it was at. Add a little extra, you know, support underneath it. This little chipboard piece that you see me adhering down, that was from one of the Hip Kit Club kits. And then I'm going to add some sequins, and this was from May's Color Rush kit, so it came in Color Rush kit. But that sequence worked really well for this layout because it had some gold stars in it. It had like kind of iridescent pieces in it, so I was like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, this will be perfect on this layout. So and then I'm going to go ahead and splatter some of the Stay Golden onto the page here. Now, I had to water it down. I did try to do it just by dipping it in the container, and it's pretty thick paint, so it was not wanting to flick off of my brush very well. So here are some close-ups. I think it turned out really cute. I was really happy to do the challenge, so thanks to Tara for hosting it. And I thank you for coming by to watch another process video.